Good morning everyone. Today's class we shall see about classifications of assessment. What is classification of assessment? Assessment, as you all know, is a process of analyzing or testing one's level of understanding or knowledge, intelligence quotient, or the content the level of content reached or understood by the students. Here in this unit, we shall now see about what is assessment, what for is assessment necessary, what is the purpose of assessment, what are the types of assessment, what is criteria based assessment, what is criteria, what is the role of criteria, and necessity of criteria based assessment. Now we shall see what is assessment. Assessment is a systematic basis of making inferences about learning and development of students. It is the process of defining, selecting, designing, collecting, analyzing, interpreting, and using information to increase students' learning and development. Now, we shall see what for is assessment is necessary. Assessment plays an important role in the process of learning and motivation of students in the due course of teaching learning process. The types of assessment tasks that we ask our students to do determine how students approach and learn tasks and what studying behavior enhances their knowledge and level of understanding. The next question we shall see is what is the purpose of assessment? The main purpose of assessment is to help to identify gaps in students' learning and what remedial measures should appropriate to reducing the learning gaps and the students that are needed to be taken continuing or improving their learning. The next we shall see who are the stakeholders of the assessment. Of course, the stakeholders, initial stakeholder is a student himself. The next is the teacher who is in the requirement to measure the level of understanding of students, either to reframe the strategy of teaching or to simplify the content and make the students understand better. The next and indirect stakeholders will be the parents and the management of the school. The parents are being benefited by the results of the students, and the management as well takes pride in the results of students. So they both are considered as indirect stakeholders who are benefited by the assessment process. Next, we shall see what are the types of assessment. Types of assessment. Assessment, though, can be classified into many forms based on the way it is being conducted, the purpose of conducting assessment, and the end user of the use of the particular assessment. It is mainly classified into three major categories as formative, summative, and diagnostic. What is formative? Formative assessment of learners during teaching and learning. It is being done as a part of teaching and learning process that enables the learners to understand better and the teacher to frame strategies or utilize teaching learning materials according to the understanding of the students to make them clear with the concepts taught. The next type is the summative assessment, which denotes year-end examinations. Either it may be a end of a unit, end of a term, or end of a year or a course. The summative assessment intends to analyze the students' knowledge acquired at the end of a course or end of a lesson or end of a course content. And the initial test usually done is a diagnostic test. This diagnostic test carries a significance of testing his level of understanding of a student before entering into a new course or stepping up to the next level of knowledge. Next, we shall see what is criteria-based assessment. Criteria-based assessments are: what is criteria-based assessment? Criteria referred assessment means that teacher's judgment about how a student does in an assessment task are based on standard and criteria that are predetermined and made available to students at the time of assessment is set. The standards are specified and definite level of achievement that may be attained. Criteria means the characteristics by which the quality of something may be judged. Criterion referred assessment improves transparency and consistency for students and supports the following university principles of assessment. Assessment design is coherent and supports learning process within courses and across the programs. Assessment tasks are demonstratively aligned with course level learning outcomes and program and university level graduate profiles. Now, what is the purpose of criteria-based assessment? The purpose of criteria-based assessment is that to obtain objective information about students' learning outcomes based on assessment criteria and provide it to all stakeholders for further improvement of educational process and attainment of students. Next, we shall see what are the types of criteria-based assessment. Criteria-based assessments are represented by three groups of level of thinking skills. They are knowledge and understanding, application, higher order thinking skills such as analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. The term criteria-based assessment was first used by Robert Egun Glacier in 1963 and characterized as a process that helps to determine the correspondence between reached and planned academic achievements of learners. A criteria-based assessment model compares learners' achievements clearly defined, collectively developed criteria, which are known to all participants of the process. What are the key components of assessment based on criteria? Assessment that is measured against gender and specific criteria. The general criteria is to test the general component, that is the knowledge or level of understanding. The specific criteria is finding out the best among those students who attain the criteria-based assessment. The next specific assessment is carried out against established standards. These specific test or assessment process has a set of rules and regulations to be followed and throughout the process of assessment. And the next is the general. All learners are addressed against the same standards. No differentiation is followed in the process of evaluation. The standard for evaluation is fixed for all the students. The next principle is transparency and accessibility. Assessment provides clear and comprehensible information as well as increase the information of participants of learning process. The principle of continuity ensures that the process or the way of assessment is in timely basis and systematically monitored to test the educational achievements of students. The last principle is that focus on development. Assessment determines the direction of development of learning objectives, schools, teachers, learners, and all other sectors involved in educational training. Now, let us see the major variation between criterion referred and norm referred assessment. Criterion norm referring encompass a learner's performance to the rest of the group, either locally, nationally, or internationally. Criterion referring compares a learner's performance at learning outcomes or perform standard. So, criterion referred assessment is where an individual's performance is compared to a specific learning outcomes or performance standards and not the performance of other learners. The criteria-based assessment has the following components. Generates variety of approaches to test the achievement of students. Enhances involvement and motivation in teaching learning process. Integrates the 21st century skills like critical thinking and creative thinking. Develops knowledge and skills of a teacher. The next is integrates the modern techniques in testing the students' understanding. It well informs the students prior to the examination about the planning process and the execution of the test to be conducted, and demonstrates the progress. The criteria-based assessment is initially demonstrated. The process of examination is initially demonstrated orally or in written format by the agency conducting criterion referred assessment. In the next class, we shall see in detail about the formative assessment, summative assessment, and the difference between formative and summative assessment, and the difference between norm referred and criterion referred assessments. Thank you. Have a better understanding.